for me, when I came up with this as a topic, um, there was a part of me that wanted to simply avoid it and find something else. And but I'm not um, specifically focused here on death. Although that is a part of it, but it is a grieving process of a multitude of things that we can lose along the way as we live our lives. And I, when working, when I was working as a therapist, uh, there would be a focus on all those many things. And some people can grieve a pet equally or greater than loss of a human. And there were things that we may have lost since childhood. Um, some may grieve the loss of their innocence. We can grieve the loss of a home. Um, I remember my mother was very loving, and as I went off into the world, um, she always said, um, when things got rough, do you want to come home, honey? And I lived with this belief that I always could. And it was when I was 49 that my father was passing and my mother was starting to have dementia that I realized my home is where I am. My home is pretty much inside of me. I like the idea your home is where the heart is, and my heart is right here. And, here I was pushing 50 years old and grieving the fact that um, I couldn't run home and be taken care of, and nurtured and such. And, what I've realized is the longer I live, the more I have to let go of. It's a given. I outlive my friends. I outlive my family. And so I never understood people who seem to be more accepting of the process, this cycle of life. If we looked at the Native American medicine wheel, I love the fact that it has 4 directions, and each direction also symbolizes 4 stages of life. And in the east, where the sun rises, uh, is the place of the newborn, and it is the place of new beginnings. And then you have the south for the child, the west for the adult, and the north, where it's mostly white most of the months, for the elder. And that for me, I'm more accepting of the stages of life as I go and finding gratitude in what that means. I remember doing a meditation at home a few years ago, and I had a candle lit, and I was in a darkened room, and I was in front of a mirror, and I looked up, and because my hair is the color it is, and I have a lot of lines on my face, and I certainly hadn't put makeup on before I looked in the mirror. I thought, oh my God, who is that old man? And I realized, that's me. But there was something I liked about it. I remember thinking, you almost look wise. And maybe you should try to be, as you're stepping into more of an elder role. Health is something that we can grieve, and that is something that we can lose, and we can lose little parts of it. I know that at my age now, I cannot outrun the police. or any kind of trouble, whoever's chasing me is going to catch me. I am someone who had heart surgery 10 years ago when I was 54. Here I am a decade later, doing pretty well. I can grieve changes within my relationship with my wife. I can also celebrate them. I'm just gonna look at a little bit of the list I wrote, because we could write 100 things down that we can lose, and so changes in friendship, changes in career, status, opportunity, that an opportunity slips away. Imagine the grief of these people who are getting on these unstable boats, trying to find something better, and the grief they might feel over coming from a place where there's no opportunity, and trying to do something different. Loss of freedom. We're going through that right now. How many of us can't live the lives that we'd like to because of the pandemic? I have a gratitude because my wife and I, Dawn, we happen to buy a home that has some acres. And so we can step outside, we can take a walk around the pond. Our dog Angel and our cat Walter, they both walk with us. So it's the whole family. And we take our strolls in safety here at home. Dawn and I, right into December, we would set a card table up out on the lawn and sit down and play table games outside while we could. We spend more time talking and getting to know each other, and having a renewed gratitude. Dawn had COVID in October. She shrugged it off. I quarantined with her, and I had symptoms. I've had 5 tests, all were negative. We've lost friends. The first things that started to happen that was significant were, people I've met through a career in music, John Prine and Joe Diffie. It was such an unusual occurrence. I continued to work as an essential worker. So I was stepping into some risky situations with clients, but felt good about the work I did. I took 6 months off, and I was getting a lot of prodding from somebody who thinks I need to keep working to save for retirement. And after a little while, I thought, maybe I am in retirement. And that did not go over. But after 6 months of being fairly safe and working on things creatively and contemplating life, I stepped back into the workplace about 3 weeks ago, and working with clients again, and supporting people in the process of overcoming trauma. And so I feel like I've increased the sense of purpose, because I was beginning to atrophy out here in the woods, which is easy for me to do. If I spend a weekend by myself and I step out in a public place, I have to try to remember the English language, And my mouth doesn't work so well for the first conversation or two. Um, I chose this topic, and something happened um, that um, kind of follows along the lines of the spontaneity that I have a tendency of operating with. And that was on Friday, a friend of mine passed, Ed Bruce. And Ed was someone in music that I first met when I was 21, and a green Yankee passing through Texas, and suddenly I meet Ed, um, who wrote "Mama's Don't Let Your Babies Go to Be Cowboys" and other things. And then I kept on heading west, and 8 years later, he became my first publisher in Nashville without even knowing that we'd met before. And then we went our separate ways. And then in about 18 years ago, we crossed paths in a post office and started talking, and spent 5 months writing a screenplay together. And then we went our separate ways again. It was more like me stepping back from the friendship, because Ed could be really cranky, and and I have a tendency of ducking for cover, and so one of the griefs that I have is that I wanted to resolve some of the issues I had in that relationship directly with him, but the pandemic was preventing me from visiting him, and so my sense of grief includes the fact that I am unable to have a resolution, which would be a sign of my evolution, really, in working on myself and not just holding something and being able to face another human and not be passive, and to speak my truth. And so that's something that has followed me through life. Um, Within relationships, I don't know about you, but having a tendency sometimes to not speak, not be authentic, walk away, and such. Um, Regarding that, um, I called a mutual friend in Texas who, this is a revelation I had as well yesterday. And he was the one who introduced me to Ed 41 years ago. And we hadn't spoken in 3 years. And I had misjudged one of his emails and made an assumption, which I can do. And I started grieving the loss of that friendship based on what I read and misinterpreted. And so for 3 years, I thought, well, he's gone this way, and I'm over here, and isn't that sad? And when I realized, when I called him to touch base, it was like we'd never been out of touch. And, he always treated me like a son he never had. And he was the person, he and his wife at that time were the ones who taught me to pay it forward. That was a lesson I learned in Texas. And so I was able to rekindle a relationship that was not burning out, but I rekindled it for myself. And it's so interesting, because what I realized is some of the things that I grieve are not gone. They are not lost. It is me telling a story about something. And so it's like, if we go back to perhaps what I was talking about with Four Agreements and whatever, months ago or years ago, when I spoke, the idea that it is me telling untruths to myself that it would cause my suffering quite often. And so, yesterday was an amazing revelation and resolution to that. And I love it when I can see the light and be back on track. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. Some of you may know that name. Her famous book was on death and dying. And she was the one, she was a Swiss-American psychiatrist and author. She was the one who came up with 5 stages of grief. And I have found it interesting how they can play out in large and small ways. And how many of you, maybe a show of hands, know the 5 stages? Okay. So, the idea of shock and denial, that can be the initial, thing that comes up. And the second one is anger, because we don't like what's going on, and something maybe is being taken away from us. Many people, when it comes to losses, that, what I've seen is the loss of faith. And for some, when I lost a girlfriend, when I was still in my teens, her parents never recovered, and they lost their connection with a higher power. They lost faith, and they lived the rest of their lives bitter. And so, there is that. Anger can stay with us for long periods of time, but usually, and I've been told that these stages don't always have to be in order. A person does not have to hit all 5 of them before they're out of the woods. But from anger, it may go to bargaining, trying to bargain, sometimes trying to bargain with a higher power. Someone who has, their addictions have caused them to become estranged with their partner. And they've been told to get treatment for a few years now. And now that they're about to lose, now they're going to promise to do anything. And now I'll go to treatment, whereas, for 2 years they were in denial and sidestepping things, and no, I can quit on my own, right? And so it can be something like that, where we're bargaining so that we don't lose everything and that we can get back into the house. It could be something like that. I had a case where I was distraught years ago on the West Coast, and I tried to bargain with God, even though I called myself an agnostic. And I'll give you this if you give me that. One of the stories about that I like to think about is there was a movie with Burt Reynolds and Dom DeLuise called The End. And Burt Reynolds has been mistakenly diagnosed with a horrible terminal situation. And he decides that he's not going to allow this thing to finish him. He's going to do it himself. And he keeps messing up, and ends up in a psychiatric hospital where he meets Dom DeLuise, who is absolutely cuckoo in clinical terms. And eventually the two of them escape. And Burt Reynolds goes to the ocean. He's in Santa Monica, and he decides he's going to swim so far out that he can't get back to shore. And he gets all the way out there, and the only thing you hear is the voice in his head, that storyteller. And once he gets way out there, his mind has talked him into wanting to live, but now he's too far from shore. And so he starts talking to God and swimming towards shore. And as he's swimming back, he says, and God, if you let me make it, I promise you, I'll tithe 50% of my income to the church. I'll work in a soup kitchen. I'll do this. Every Sunday I'll be in a church and all this. And he gets a little closer to shore and he says, and God, I'm going to tithe 30% of my income, and I'm going to make a donation to the Salvation Army. And by the time he gets about to shore, he says, why am I talking to you anyway? You're the one who made me sick. And, and what have you ever done for me? I've done this all on my own. And that's the way he finishes the swim, and he makes it to shore, but there's Dom DeLuise holding a 45. And the movie ends with the chase on the beach. But just this idea that I'm going to try to negotiate terms with the universe and tell it what I want and probably when I want it and how it's supposed to be. And I'm going to have these notions, which again is going to cause my suffering. Anyhow, the next stage, which is the fourth one, is despair. And, I certainly know what that is. I've been there, and I'm sure that many of us, or all of us, know what that is. And for me, that is what causes my collapse and brings me to my knees. And what I realized is, as somebody who spent many, many years angry at the church I grew up in, and calling myself agnostic, that all changed in recent years. But when I'm brought to that place of despair, I thought, I'm on my knees. And then the thought, while I'm down there, what do people do on their knees? And so it was a perfect place for me to ask for help. For me to not have to do it on my own, for me to acknowledge, a power greater than myself, something I can rely on, and surrender, equals acceptance. And so that's what I have found with so many things. I would suggest that what happens for me in life and for many people that I know, for anybody who's been in a recovery program and they tell you, surrender, you have to surrender to win. And so many of us were taught growing up, you don't surrender, and big boys don't cry and all these things, that maybe don't help us in most situations. And the idea that surrender itself means failure. I do not see it that way. We do surrender to win. Some people will let something go, and if they take it back, for example, if you have a resentment on a Tuesday, about something, and you go through this process of, okay, I'm letting this go. Maybe I pray for that person and do whatever I do. Of course, you wouldn't want to know what some of my prayers used to be. But if I let go, and then tomorrow or the next day, it's back again. My mind's been going. I'm thinking of that person again, and suddenly that resentment starts to rise. To me, that's an opportunity. That each day is an opportunity for surrender. And so as I go through my life, I may have to surrender a same thing over and over again. I may have to surrender a certain person who um, is my petty tyrant, let us say, um, several times before I get beyond it. And what I find when I get beyond it is that I am putting love in the direction of that person, and it's not because I'm the bigger person or that there's any ego involved in it. It's just that I am acknowledging the light in everybody and everything, and and when I see that, and I know that, you know, we both came from the same source, let us say, that um, I understand that you have your story and I have mine. And we both have been on long journeys, and I don't know yours. I don't know what along the way has helped um, form who you are when you present yourself to me today. And so I can give you grace and accept grace, you know, hopefully receive it myself, because I certainly do not engage with everybody in the most perfect fashion. Um, so, um, anyhow, um, God, I have to put my glasses on. Another thing I was thinking is how there will always be change. And I don't know about you, but as I get older, I start becoming one of those people that says, you know, back in the olden days in 1973, we always used to hear that from others, you know, and I'm becoming one of those people who bemoans life today uh, and brings up the past. And, you know, that is my resistance. And I'm happier when I'm not resisting and I'm looking at the world and I understand that it's always in a state of change. There's always something new. One of the things I can grieve is the loss of routine or the loss of the way it used to be. And the truth is, there's this evolution going on here in this world, and I'm a part of it. And those coming up along behind me, they're a part of it. Everybody is a part of it. And we're all creating this collective dream of what is the planet here. And for me to be more embracing of it. Um, Knowing that I also have the ability to have opinions and share my truth and such. I was thinking about how sometimes with meditation we may focus on the breath, and the breath could be considered life and death. You know, every time we inhale, there's life. Every time we exhale, you know, there's the surrender. And so if I break it down to that, I understand that every day some of my cells are dying. So, and some are being born, right? And so there's this process that's always going on. Something is leaving and something is coming in. And in speaking of the light, I remember when I was in college in California, an art teacher, Jim Rosen, said there is only light in the absence of light. And he was reflecting on the old masters and Titian, who was responsible for the color Titian red. And these artists would have this dark canvas, and they pick up their brush and they only painted the light. And that was a religious thing, because if you painted shadows, you were doing the devil's work. But just the idea that as I live my life, I can consider the same thing, that there was so much value in that light. That song, when it talks about, really one star going out in this great big universe, and that it's significant, that it has meaning. I think in a way it's my duty to embrace the light, embrace my own light, and live a life that doesn't forget the value of that and the value in others as I go. Can I ask you a question? The stages of grief, the idea that we can be grieving something every day and celebrating every day, and perhaps saying goodbye to something and welcoming something on the same day. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And do you feel that you've gone through those 5 stages of grief in one way or another? Yeah.
They're soft spread out over a long period of time sometimes, and they blend in over and over.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them over and over again.
Yeah,
Right.
I don't like to say goodbye. I like to hold on to everything. I even like to hold on to bad relationships. Yeah, I'm still in touch with old girlfriends from years ago. And then I'll have a conversation and say, why am I staying in touch? But, it's interesting. I say that because the truth is, there's that part of me that still loves everybody. And that may have been rekindled from, I was one of those kids when I'd be pushed through the grocery store, I'd say hi to every single stranger up and down the aisles. And it was like, oh my God, it's the grocery store. What an adventure today is, and no matter what I did, I was excited to be a part of it, So anyhow, I think I am done. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I don't have a real definitive endpoint, and I'm kind of grieving that I don't. But I did ask for a song that I had pulled up to be played, and Katie has that. If it can be shown with the video, this is a song I wrote that has been used for people saying goodbye to somebody. And I think the most poignant thing that happened for me was I was just doing a little research, Googling a few years ago, and I saw on a blog the story of three brothers that hiked for 4 days into the Grand Tetons. And at the end of the fourth day, they played this song while they put their father's ashes in a stream. And it touched me that, I was able to kind of birth this song, and it goes off into the world and has its own little life, and is used in ceremony or whatever. And I wouldn't even necessarily know, but things are just out there doing what they do. Someone in Australia took Curtis Prince and more and created a slideshow that goes with the song. So if we can see the visual, that would be great. But if not, this is a song that it's called Golden Eagle.
Death is just another kind of birth. When it comes to me, I'll be alright. I'll give my body back to Mother Earth and give back Father Sun my ray of light. Down in my old birch bark canoe, say goodbye and push off from the shore. I'll paddle back across the life I knew, and when I reach my cradle board, he will come for me, and he will carry me so high on sacred wings so true. I will sail home to the Great Spirit in the sky. The day my sun goes sinking down, I paint the sky the color of a rose and dance with light just as the night comes round. So I am in my glory as I go. Golden eagle, he will come for me, and he will carry me so high on sacred wings so true. I will sail home to the Great Spirit in the sky, until my journey's end and I am home again. Golden eagle, he will fly.
Thank you.